Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and I am back home in the UK, and I had an absolute awesome time in the US at TwitchCon, staying in San Jose and San Francisco in California. Must say a massive thank you to everyone who tuned along to the streams or just came out to see me. I had an absolute amazing time, and I can't believe it's taken me 30 years to be able to go to the US, and hopefully it won't be another 1, let alone 30 before I go back. I've absolutely had a whale of a time out there. It seems like there's quite a few of you out there that kind of make attending events even better, right? Alright, so today's video I want to focus on the Leopard 1. Quite a controversial vehicle in World of Tanks. Now, why is it a controversial vehicle? Well, it's a tank that a lot of people get, I'd say, as their first tier 10 medium. It's a famous tank. You get to see these bombing it around the arena at Bovington at Tankfest each year. It's the first display that they have. They call it the shock and awe display, and trust me, it is actually quite awe-inspiring. Just you feel the engine as they go past. For a lot of people, it's their first experience of seeing a tank just driving around the arena, and probably even just seeing a tank driving really near them for the first time, getting covered in those fumes from the engine, getting the vibration in your chest as the vehicle goes past. But how does the vehicle hold up in World of Tanks? Well, it's kind of like this big box, right? It's a big old profile, this tank. Just take a look at it. And the issue is that it has just absolutely no armor. We're talking about having kind of like 70 millimeters at the front, 35 at the side, and 25 at the rear. 35 millimeters of side armor means that all 106 millimeter caliber shells and larger, 116 millimeter caliber shells and larger are going to be able to overmatch the side of this tank. Now, overmatching means that you have no chance of bouncing, which means, of course, you can't side scrape against a lot of vehicles on the enemy team. The M103, the Object 705, the T10, the 430, the 705A, all of those tanks will be able to overmatch me. And so what this vehicle requires is an extensive knowledge of the enemy's reloads, so that you can know when you can come around the corner and hopefully get a snapshot into them. So you wait for the T10 to fire at somebody else. You can fire at him twice. Then you pop around the corner and you can fire at him twice because you know his reload is quite long and you're going to be able to get 2 shells into him. Or you wait for a fast tank to fire and you come around, you snapshot just before they're able to reload. And the problem is that a lot of people who get this tank for... Well, this is what I'm trying to say is this is usually the first tier 10 tank for a lot of people, and when you're playing your first tier 10 tank, usually you're very much not prepared for how brutal the top tier tanks of the game are, and how influential they can be, and how experienced everybody is at the top tier, and so the vehicle gets immensely punished because of these two things. However, in the hands of a capable player, I'm not trying to claim that I am capable, I know a thing or two about tanks, but there's definitely better players out there. I can feel that I can make the Leopard work. It's all about harassment and using the accuracy of the vehicle, which is a wonderful 0.3. You'll see that my accuracy of this game has been absolutely awesome. And that 0.3 accuracy is better than all of the other vehicles apart from, say, the E50M. There's no other tier 10 medium tank that even really comes close. Let's talk about the Projeto 65, 0.33, the STB1, 0.36, the M48, the same as the STB1 at 0.36, and even the AMX-30B, which was Wargaming kind of remodeled, is at 0.36 as well. Now, the AMX-30B is an interesting tank to talk about because that vehicle should be the closest thing to competing with the Leopard because it's kind of a Leopard hybrid. But Wargaming nerfed the penetration on that tank massively to the point where I just don't really feel like it can compete. Alright, so we're in an absolute crunch engagement right now. And oh, that was a big moment. We come round the corner against the Czechoslovakian autoloader and shut him down. We're just dominating the central position, and we're using our rate of fire, our aim time, and our accuracy to go to town on the enemy tanks. We've just situated ourselves in a position where we're dominating the tier 10 platoon that tried to push across the south, while also harassing the other tier 10 tank that's pushing across the north of this map. And this is where the Leopard can be absolutely monstrous, and I'd say it's probably better than any other tier 10 medium tank apart from the K91 in this scenario, because you've got the accuracy, you've got the aim time, and even the turret traverse dispersion. What a lot of people hate about the Leopard, and this is one of the excuses that I think a lot of armchair generals would say about the Leopard as to why it's bad. They claim it's the soft stats. Now, sure, the vehicle doesn't have the most amazing ground resistances, but this vehicle is still probably the most mobile tier 10 medium tank when it comes down to it. Now, the vehicle does have one terrible soft stat, I will admit, and that is the dispersion when you're moving. When you come forwards in this vehicle, the tank blooms, and so you will have to spend a little bit extra after using your full speed in this tank to be able to be fully accurate. Or alternatively, if you want a snapshot on the move, that's not really where the Leopard is in its strong point. I feel that the turret traverse dispersion, well, I know that the turret traverse dispersion on this tank is actually great. It's 0.08. That's the same as the M48 pattern, which has legendary snapshotting capacity, and it's way better than the Projeto, which is at 0.12, and way better than the SDB1 at 0.14. And so this vehicle is kind of getting half the turret traverse bloom as the SDB1. Alright, so this was a very frustrating part of the game here. A Kranvang is stopping behind the Oho, just right in the middle, you know? He could either go to the left or the right, so I just feel like I have to get around this corner. I have to give him a little bit of a bump so I can come around the corner and hopefully finish off the M103. Don't know why the Kranvang was waiting, probably because he was low on hit points. You know, I hate muscling my friends or the players on my team out of position. But, you know, if you've got somebody just sitting there and he's not willing to go to the left or the right, I feel like you have to give them a couple of love bumps along the way. Alright, so interesting engagement here. It's an Object 705. I know he's got about 490 alpha damage or 440 depending on which gun he's choosing to use, but by locking down the tracks here, we are just securing, hopefully, a big game at the end. But not sure if I'm the one actually keeping the tracks locked off. We'll have to see if the Kranvang is actually doing damage to this tank or if he's just shooting the tracks there and not actually damaging the vehicle. And with the final shot into the Scorpion G, there we have a stellar game for the Leopard. But this wasn't really going to be what the meat of this video is going to be about. I want to talk about the Leopard and whether it really is probably the weakest tier 10 medium tank. Alright, so here's the statistics that I was talking about during the video. Look, the Leopard versus the Projeto, the SDB1, the M48, and the AMX-30B. I'm not comparing it to the E50M, even though this is a tier 10 German medium tank like the E50M is, but I feel like that's just more of a heavy vehicle. You choose the Leopard when you want to have some mobility, and arguably a little bit, definitely a rate of fire advantage, or you pick the E50M if you want to be like a rammer, or you just want to have some armor to snipe and last at long range, and slowly but steadily chew your way through the enemy team. Now let's see what the advantages of the Leopard here. Immediately we notice the DPM's pretty good compared to the Projeto, but falls off compared to the other tanks. The penetration is great, especially compared to the 30B, and the shell velocity is great compared to the 30B. This is a reason why I absolutely despise this tank. You just don't feel like you have that tier 10 medium tank gun, and while you do have a great rate of fire, I just don't feel like it's that much better than the other vehicles to justify the sacrifice. So as we can see, gun handling on Leopard is great, especially on the turret traverse dispersion and the aim time, but as I mentioned, the moving dispersion is awful, which is why you should never really fire on the move in the Leopard unless you're pretty sure you're going to hit the target. You're better to stop momentarily, take a shot, or try and get into a position, only expose a small amount to your tank, and then use your fantastic aim time and turret traverse dispersion to be able to snap off a shot. And the mobility of the vehicle is good, but it's not kind of 10 out of 10. Well, I guess it is 10 because it's better than all of the other vehicles here, but it's not so much better that it makes up for the fact that this is a weakly armored tank. This vehicle makes the Projeto 65 feel like a well-armored vehicle. And it just doesn't have any advantages, does it? You know, not the highest amount of dispersion, not the highest amount of gun depression at 9 degrees. The best mobility, but not by much. Definitely the worst armor. A little bit of view range advantage over the Projeto 65, but not quite up with the M48. I feel like this tank needs some love. And you can kind of prove this with the statistics, really. This is the win ratio, at least of the European server for all of the tier 10 medium tanks in, I believe, the last 30 days? Probably the last 30 days. Alright, so what are we looking at here? Well, T22 Medium, Object 907, M60 Chieftain, 121B and T95E6 are all on top. But I wouldn't arguably say that this is because these vehicles are outrageously overpowered. With all of these tanks having 54 and above % win ratio, it's because who's going to be unlocking these tanks? It's going to be Clan Wars players, and of course, those are the kind of players who are experienced at the game. You know, the new players can't unlock these tanks without joining clans, and to be able to even get into those clans, you need to prove your worth statistically, and then you need to actually perform on the battlefield to get these campaign rewards. So what are the best tier 10 medium tanks outside of that? Well, we're seeing the Object 430U. That one just straight up needs a bit of a tune down. Its armor is just too good and Wargaming should do something about it. The Projeto 65, that's a new tank, along with this doesn't even exist in the game, I don't believe, the Object 430. This is just a bit of a bug that we're going to have to forget about. But the Projeto 65, a new tank, probably some of the more experienced players are playing it, and I have seen the win ratio of the Projeto just dropping and dropping and dropping the more that the casual players are reaching the end of the tech tree and starting to play some games in it. Then we've got this glut of vehicles, and we have to scroll all the way to the bottom to find the Leopard one, and there you go, ladies and gents, nearly a whole percentage point below everything else. Now look at this. We see that all of these tanks, pretty much all of the tanks apart from, well, every single tank apart from 430U has got between 49 and 50%, 51% win ratio, showing you that actually tier 10 medium tanks are really balanced apart from the 430U. And then the Leopard is the only one in its class that is outside this bracket, or it's in a whole class of its own, as I should say. Now, that's got to be down to the armor, right? And the fact that it just doesn't have any other advantages. Or alternatively, maybe it's because a lot of new players want to get to the Leopard. It's really hard to say. Now, if we look at my statistics, they actually run pretty much in line with the statistics of the whole server collectively. I have 57% wins on average in my Leopard 1, which is the lowest of any of my tier 10 medium tanks. With at the top, we're packing the K91, the T62A. I think that's because I was platooning in that mostly. But the Leopard 1 is more of a vehicle that I solo play in. But again, my lowest win ratio of any of my tier 10 medium tanks, of which I average usually about 60%, 61% win ratio. And so does the Leopard need an absolute monster buff? Well, no, I wouldn't say it needs an incredible, huge buff, but it could definitely use something. So what would I personally do to the Leopard 1 to bring it up on par with all of the other vehicles and just make it more of a novel tank to play? Well, I would focus on it, what the feel of the Leopard should be. And I think the feel of the Leopard is that it's a reconnaissance sniper. Now, the vehicle doesn't have the best DPM, but I think that just increasing the rate of fire, that's such a callous way of making the tank better. Do we really need to just make everything escalate the damage per minute of all of these vehicles? I don't think so. I think we should amplify the strengths of the Leopard, or just make them a little bit better than the other vehicles without making it overpowered, hopefully, to make it an interesting tank to play. Now, I would go as far as to either improve the dispersion when moving, or more importantly, the dispersion when turning the turret. I think that once the Leopard has got into position, it should be a legendary tank that can snapshot or just come around the corner and use its turret to be able to pull off a shot without having to spend too long exposing its rather weak armor. Alternatively, other micro things that Wargaming could do is just to increase the gun depression of the tank. Upping that to 10 degrees or even higher would be a little bit funky if that's even feasible. Other options would be to increase the shell velocity of the standard rounds or even of the premium rounds of this vehicle to truly be the master of long range, which is where you definitely want to be taking your tank. Now, the reason why I'm kind of going on about this a little bit is we see all of these buffs to premium tanks. Cynical me thinks they're doing this because they want to sell them in the upcoming advent calendar, and they want to buff them all up so that they're attractive for players to purchase, because frankly nobody wants to buy a preferential matchmaking tank before the buffs, and I think some of the buffs have actually made a few of them interesting. But it always just confuses me as to why Wargaming kind of leave tanks like the Leopard or a whole host of other vehicles down the tech tree as these kind of redundant resources in their game. I'm sure a lot of people would probably start to play their way up the German lightly armored medium tank tech tree if, of course, it was a more relevant vehicle. But then again, when we order it by players playing, the Leopard is the 5th most popular medium tank. So they'd probably argue that why do we need to have more people playing this tank? Surely we'd be trying to target people playing the Projeto or the AMX-30B or even the SDB-1, for example. But clearly those are not the tanks that need the buff. But I'd be really interested to know what you all have to say about the Leopard. Do you think it's actually already a great tank, doesn't need a buff at all? But if you agree with me that it kind of needs a little bit of a tune-up, what aspects of the tank would you change to just make it a little bit better without making it crazy overpowered, or just to give it that novelty in World of Tanks? Anyway, ladies and gents, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Really appreciate you all dropping by to check out this Leopard gameplay. If you enjoyed it, consider giving the video a thumbs up, but if you hated it, make sure you give it a thumbs down. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.